And today we're talking about a new feature in version 8 of Keystroke, and their edit warnings. They are, it's a great feature. Some of you may have had this experience. So let's talk a little bit about Keystroke Live. Remember, every week it's the same time, same place. We do technical topics on the Keystroke software. And the first Wednesday of every month is with our president, Michael Gebb. That will be next week. These version 8 edit warnings, they're primarily to help with a lot of big businesses, and those of you who have had Keystroke in big businesses where they do sales orders and purchase orders and even other special transaction types. Somebody might bring up an order on their computer. Then they need to go check the stock or talk to somebody. And then they go to another computer, bring up the same transaction, change it, edit it, convert it, save it on that computer, come back to the original one, save it again. That can cause data loss, it can cause confusion, it can cause problems with inventory counts, all kinds of things. And so in version 8, we've added a lot of warnings to try to prevent what I like to say last one saved wins syndrome. And there's all kinds of places in Keystroke. The message, we call it original transaction changed message. And it kind of replaces the transaction no longer valid message. I'm going to show you how this works in a couple places. I can't possibly give you every instance of how it may happen. But in most cases, you're going to get 3 or 4 choices when you get that message. It could be reload the transaction or the database record or whatever you're looking at, clear, ignore, or cancel. Realize if you ignore it or cancel it and save it again, that's where you're really going to have problems. By default, either reload or clear is the default answer. One thing I see a lot of times when people have things up on various computers, and they come back to a computer, rather than clearing the transaction from the screen, they just hit F10, 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 and resave it. That's where the big issue has happened. So, you know, it's best to clear a transaction, but we've added a lot of these warnings to help prevent a lot of the issues that some of you may have seen with your customers. These warnings are in Sales and Purchase Manager, where 2 computers have the same transaction up. One has changed it, converted it, resaved it. And then the other computer tries to change something or tries to do even just resaving it, you're going to get a warning. Also, it can happen if you try to change a customer on an invoice that already has an ROA payment applied to it. Keystroke can mess up when that happens, so it's going to give you a warning that for this particular instance, in order to change the customer on an invoice that already has an ROA payment applied, not the on-account payment, just an ROA payment like they've given you a check or a credit card, the only way to do that will be you will have to delete that ROA payment in AR, then go back and edit the invoice, and then re-enter the ROA payment. Also, accounts receivable is going to have these warning messages. For example, if someone in accounts receivable applies an ROA payment to a transaction that's in edit mode on another computer, the computer or instance of Keystroke, they try to resave it, they're going to get this message. Similar goes for database records. Two different people have the same database record open. Or sometimes they have two instances of Keystroke, they've got a database record open, and then in purchasing they're trying to receive something for that database record. So that's where your quantities can get off. There's also a feature in variance that is for advanced Keystroke POS only, that when you could have, you all know, multiple variances going on different computers. Maybe you've got one person checking a particular department, another person checking another department, or one's in the front of the store or in the main part of the store, one's in the warehouse or the storage area. So you can have multiple variances going on. There's a parameter in variance now that asks that you can check that when you go to post a variance, it will look for other open variances, whether they're currently open and being worked on right now, or whether they've been opened and saved for somebody else to go back to check to see if any of the items on the variance being posted are on the other variances. There is a limit here of about 9 open variances. So what I'm going to try to do is see if you can everybody see both of my instances of Keystroke running here? Let me unmute you for a minute. Can anybody?
Yeah, we can see them.
Okay, great.
We can see them.
Great. I'm going to
remember. There's always a delay when you switch between apps.
Okay. So I'm going to try to show you a couple of examples of how this works. So let's edit a purchase order, and we're going to open up the same purchase order on both instances of Keystroke. So what we're doing, we're simulating here that someone has brought this up on their computer and then they've done something else and they go to another computer and bring it up. So let's say on the one computer, we're going to receive these items. We're going to save this transaction. So we have just completed this purchase order. Now if we go back to the other computer, somebody tries to use F10, F10, F10 to save it, you're going to get a message. Original transaction has changed. This record, I'm not going to read it all to you, but here in this case are our 4 options. Reload the transaction, clear it, ignore it, or cancel. For this type of instance, it's going to default to reload. So if they just continue with F10, it's going to reload. Notice how all of a sudden nothing's on order, there's nothing to be received. There's an A here. That should give an indication to that person between the message and what's on the screen, hey, something's changed. Let's figure out what that is. So let's clear this transaction. I'm going to show you a similar message that may happen when a transaction is converted. So let's bring up a different purchase order that I know has not been received. We're going to do it the same one on each computer. Well, might help if I have the right one, huh? There we go. So let's say on this one, I'm going to receive part of this order. I'm not going to receive all of it. I'm going to receive it. I can add a payment. It doesn't really matter whether I do. And I'm going to save it. Okay, this is probably not a good one to do because there's no open orders. So it deleted it. But if I go here to the second one and try to save it, another process has changed it. Let's go to a different one so I can illustrate the difference between converting a transaction and just changing it. So let's bring up, let's go to Sales Manager. We're going to bring up a sales order here. Okay. So on one computer, we're going to ship this sales order. And we have delete filled orders turned on. So when you ship it, it's no longer a sales order. It's now an invoice. Okay, my out of stock warning. Let's apply cash to it. And we're going to save it. If you go back to this computer, and whether you try to change something or not, I mean, I can change it or not change it. When I go to save it after my transaction warning, hey, this has changed. It's been altered. It's probably been converted or deleted. This case, because it's converted, you can't reload this original transaction. It's gone. So it's going to clear it by default. Again, if you choose ignore or cancel and proceed to save a transaction because it's been changed, that can cause problems with your data. Either orders that shouldn't be there, that should have been deleted, your quantities may be incorrect, your on-order quantities, your allocated, your layaway quantities. All kinds of things can happen. So let's get back to our PowerPoint presentation here. And I want to open this up for questions. What I encourage all of you to try is do the same thing I've done here, just to get a feel for how it works. Open up 2 instances of our sample data. Try to edit the same transaction, or try to change something on it, convert it, whatever you might want to do. And pay attention to the messages. Unfortunately, we all know sometimes that's the hardest thing. That's why with these new warnings for editing the same thing on 2 different instances of Keystroke, that's why that warning defaults to reload or clear. So if a clerk isn't paying attention, it's probably not going to be as big of an issue. So this is a great feature. A lot of people have had issues with this in the past. This is new in version 8. It happens in all kinds of areas of Keystroke, the sales and purchasing, whether you're changing, converting a transaction, in accounts receivable, on database records, inventory customers, and for variants for advanced only, it can check to see if there's open variances on other open variances with the same line items when you go to post a variance.
Hey, Lynn, we have a question in the chat from Randy.
There we go. Okay, I have a question here from Randy. a situation where, assuming the wireless dropped the computer off and locked up the terminals, and does this help with that? Unfortunately, it does not. You know, networking is a totally separate part of being able, of having Keystroke be able to tell you that something has been changed on another computer. It can't tell you that because it's not connecting to the server. So that, unfortunately, is pretty tough. I know a lot of dealers do face wireless issues, so unfortunately, it won't help with that. Does anybody else have any questions? Well, thanks for being here today. Play with this new feature. I think it's great. I think it's really going to help a lot of your larger installations of Keystroke, where they have multiple terminals all over a large building. Remember, same time, same place, every Wednesday. Next week, you'll get to speak with Michael Gebb, and I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of their week. Bye-bye.